Before we go any further, remember one sentence. One thing, because it sounds like a cliché, until you see it in practice. Winning a battle is not the same what victory in war. We return to Kircholm. To the field where people lie, that no one has counted yet. To the ground that is wet, heavy and full of traces. And it's not like everything gets quieter after the battle. In films there is silence, music, the camera floats over the field, and then subtitles. In fact, there is something worse after a battle than the noise of battle. There is noise that makes no sense. There are horses that can't get up. A broken leg in a horse does not look like a wound. It's a verdict, and the sound the animal makes that tries to get up and doesn't understand that it can't anymore, this is a sound you don't want to hear even in your imagination. There are hundreds of such horses lying around. Polish, Swedish, the horse has no flag. There are people who moan with their faces pressed into the mud. Some people don't know yet that they're dying. The wound from the Hussars lance does not look like a film wound. This is not a cut that can be patched up and moved on. The Hussar lance was over 5 meters high. A long, hollow pole, made so to make it lighter but still hard. And when it hits a man with the full force of a galloping horse, can go right through. This is not poetic exaggeration. This is physics. These copies were designed to break behind the point. Because the energy of the impact was so great that a solid shaft could tear the rider out of the saddle. The spearhead went in, the shaft broke, the hussar was left with a piece of wood and immediately reached for the second weapon. It was kill engineering. Cold, thoughtful, down to the last centimeter. But Chodkiewicz, and this is something that's easy to miss, doesn't have time for this field. Not yet. Because the battle is over and the chase is just beginning. The battle was followed by a chase. One sentence. Like cleaning up after a party. As if it were a formality. No. The chase around Kircholm is a separate story. And if you want to understand why this victory is so great but also so dirty, you have to see it. Imagine you are a Swedish infantryman. You are 19 years old. You have a musket, but the powder is wet. The land goes dark, your hands are shaking. You have a pike, but the piston pike is useless. It's too long to maneuver when people are bumping into each other and you don't have room to move. Your line is broken. She lost in some places. It cracked like a board under my shoe. And suddenly you are alone. First instinct? Run away. Second reflex? Lose everything that slows you down. You throw the pike. You throw away the helmet. You throw it on the breastplate. You run. Wet. Dirty. No chic. Without a commander. And then you hear behind you what was the worst sound in the world that day. Rumble. No shot. Don't the pounding of hooves. The rumbling says one thing. Someone will catch up with you. Someone is faster. Someone has strength that you don't have. And someone doesn't have time to take prisoners. Is this cruel? Yes. Is this the reality of war? The chase is merciless not because that people are worse. Just because you don't have time in the chase. If you stop to tie up a prisoner, you die. And if you let him go, so the chase looks like the math of death. Chodkiewicz knew one thing. To destroy an army is not the same as to destroy an army. A broken army can rally. The destroyed army disappears. And that's why Chodkiewicz divides the pursuit into groups. One part of the ride goes directly behind those escaping. Their task is simple. Don't let them stop. The second group walks sideways. On the wing. He's trying to cut off the road to Riga. Because Riga is all about walls. Riga it works. Riga means safety. Chodkiewicz doesn't want them to arrive. He wants this army to cease to exist here. That day. And now we come to the place that turns escape into a nightmare. Livonia. Imagine thousands of people. They reach the river. The water is cold. It's the end of September. Enough to take away your strength after a while. Ton. They drown in their shoes and wet clothes. They drown because the current is strong. Because in panic they grab each other and pull each other under the water as one weight. Sources say there are hundreds of bodies. No poems are written about this part of Kircholm. Because there's no glory in it. There is only cold, fear and mathematics. A scene that sounds like fiction but it is documented. King of Sweden. Charles. the same one who came here like a confident man. He almost died. His dragoons have one task. The king is alive. At all costs. And almost everyone died that day. The king is surrounded. His horse falls or is injured. The king is falling. The king of Sweden is lying in the mud. People are dying around him. Imagine the perspective of a hussar. He sees ornate armor, royal colors, insignia, banner. This is the king of the enemy. If you capture him, the war may end. If you kill him, it's something no one talks about out loud, but everyone thinks about it. Finally, someone picks up Karol. Someone puts him on a horse. And the king runs away. He escaped. King. From the battlefield. He reaches the ships on the Daugava river. He boards the ship. And he floats away. He leaves the army. This is not propaganda. This is a fact. And now we come to the numbers. And the numbers in such stories can lie. The winner exaggerates the enemy's losses. The loser underestimates them. But even the lowest estimates are shocking. The Swedes had about 11,000 people at Kircholm. Chodkiewicz had about 3,600. 1 to 3. And yet, Swedish losses. Several thousand. Even about 8,000. But you can't escape one thing. It was a disaster. The army ceased to exist. And this is where most people stop. They won. End. Legend. Only Chodkiewicz is standing in the field and knows something different. He knows this victory may not change anything. And now look at the map, but not like a map in a textbook. Look at the problem. Livonias are open. The road to Riga is theoretically clear. But Chodkiewicz cannot take Riga. There is nothing. It has 3. 5. Some are injured. Some are tired. Some want to go home because the campaign season is ending. There is no infantry capable of a long siege. There is no siege artillery. There is no stock. There is no money to pay soldiers for the next months. And this is where the dark side comes out. Republic of Poland. Chodkiewicz ran this campaign largely with his own money. The parliament did not pass sufficient taxes. The nobility did not want to pay. The nobility wanted victories, but did not want to pay for them. And now imagine the absurdity of this situation. You have a formation that just did something which sounds like fiction in Europe. You have people who entered the wall of pikemen and musketeers and smashed it like a battering ram. You have a victory that could open the door to a bigger game. And then you come back to camp and hear the same thing you always hear. There is no pay. There's no money. There is no decision. There are letters, requests, letters, and answers that do not arrive or come too late. Or they come with empty promises. Military confederation. Soldiers who were not paid, they formed unions and refused to fight. They stood and said, "We don't fight until you pay." And then, to survive, they started taking money from civilians. From the people they were supposed to defend. And this is the moment that hurts the most. Because it breaks the legend. Hussars, heroes of Kircholm, some of them later went to the villages and took food, money, belongings. Because the state didn't pay. Is this a story they tell in school? No. But this is a true story. And now, before you say, it doesn't make sense. After all, they won. Remember, war is not only about weapons. War is logistics, food, money, movement, time. And now ask yourself what your opponent does after such a defeat. Because here's the second shock. Sweden is not a country that breaks down after one defeat. Sweden is a country that is learning. Karol Dwadnium returns humiliated, but unbroken. And then the next generation comes and does something that changes Europe. The Swedes are starting to build a system. Discipline, supplies, tactics, reform. And the irony is that later, the Swedish modern army is born as a response to what the Hussars did to them. Kircholm. Poles taught Swedes how to lose, and the Swedes learned how to never lose that way again. And the Republic of Poland? The Republic of Poland continues to win battles. And he still may not win the war. And that's why Kircholm is beautiful and sad at the same time. Beautiful because it shows what you are capable of when the best people stand in one row. Sad because it shows that it may not be enough if you end up back in the same mess after winning. And now let's go back to that moment just after the battle. Because there is something that makes Kircholm capture the imagination not only with numbers. This is psychology. After the first crack in the infantry wall, something happens that you can't stop with an order. Fear takes on a life of its own. The officers try to stick people to the ground by shouting. They are trying to set up a second line. They are trying to catch the remnants of the formation. But if you once felt that the wall had cracked, you don't believe it the same anymore. And once you have seen that cavalry can enter your line, you begin to see horses even where there are none. Fear does its job. And this is where this battle becomes more than just a clash of weapons. It becomes a clash of the psyche. Hussars win not only with their lance. He wins by what he does in his opponent's head. It takes away his sense of security, turns a plan into a rescue. And when the army switches from plan to rescue, the battle is virtually lost. But it's still not over. Because after victory, the most difficult thing begins. Maintain control over your own people. Don't get caught up in the chase. Don't stretch the formation. Don't turn victory into chaos on your side. And this is where Chodkiewicz goes beyond the legend. He's not just a charge leader. He's the breaking chief. From not letting victory slip from your hands like a slippery knife. And that's why in this story we are about to enter something that is less glamorous than a charge, but more decisive. Politics, money, logistics, and how a great victory can be squandered by a system that doesn't work. Because this is the true story of Kircholm. Not just a day of battle. But what came before it and after it. Mud, hunger, no pay, unanswered letters. And now I will leave you with a painting, who is the most honest. Not with the image of a hussar in the light of the setting sun. Only with an image from the very end of the day. Mud, smoke, tired horses. People who sit by the fire and have no strength to speak. Winners who look like these who barely survived. And somewhere in all this Chodkiewicz, who knows he has won the battle. But war and politics are just starting to come into play. And this is where part 3 begins. Because in the next chapter of this story, we won't just look at charges anymore. We will look at how Europe has started to learn. How modernity began to be built. How she started creating an army, in which fire, discipline, and organization will be able to stop even the best cavalry. And then a question will be asked that no one wants to hear, but everyone needs to hear it. Could Hussar survive the world? Who stopped playing by her rules? If you want a sequel, write one word Kircholm in the comment. And if you want a series about Hussars, write Hussars. And stay here because this story is not over. She's only now starting to get really dangerous. And now pay attention, because there is a moment in this story where the legend becomes louder than the truth. Kircholm is like a flash. You see it until you squint and then everything goes back to grey. It's just that after such a flash, there is no normal day in Europe anymore. The news is coming fast. Through ports, through merchants, through envoys, by letters read in whispers. Because no one believes at first. 3,500 broke 11? It sounds like a fairy tale, like propaganda, like a trick, like a miracle. And that is why Kircholm begins to live a second life. The life of stories. Some add numbers, others add details. The winner increases the miracle. The loser diminishes it. And the truth is this. Even after subtracting half, there is still something left which shouldn't work. Europe begins to whisper Hussars, and something unheroic happens in the victor's camp. Victory has no scent of incense. It smells of wet blankets and horse sweat. It has the smell of blood that does not come off your hands, even if you rub it with sand. And it has another scent. An empty bag, the greatest irony of the era. You may win the field, but without money and supplies you lose against time. Chodkiewicz stands on the border of two worlds. In one world there is Kircholm. Genius, courage, the moment when history breaks. In the other world there is administration. Assemblies, MPs, tug of war, not now, later. It's none of my business. And now see it through the commander's eyes. You have a chance in front of you. You have an opponent who got punched in the face. You have a path that is theoretically opening. And behind you have people starting to count. Not battles, just days. How much oats do we have? How much gunpowder do we have? How many horses are capable of walking? How many people are still standing straight? How many wounds will develop into gangrene today? Because the war after the battle is not just another scene. This is the bill. And this calculation begins to speak. You can win the second Kircholm, but you have no money left. Because to understand why don't you have anything left, you need to see again what they hit with back then. Not a legend. Not with wings. Physics. The morning near Kircholm was not epic. He was wet. It was heavy. It was slippery. And the earth began to tremble not from the scream, only from the mass. It wasn't a metaphor. It was a wall of men, wood and iron, and each of them believed that he would survive. The first hit doesn't look like in the movie. There is no spectacular spread. This is a meltdown. A short moment when the sheep breathes. The copy was not decoration. She was a tool. Long, hollow, flexible. She hit with the weight of a horse. And it broke exactly where it was supposed to break. And this strike is not about one man. It's about momentum. If the horse walks half a meter further, the wall ceases to be a wall. It's not a hit anymore. This is breaking into the middle. And there is no room for a long gun inside. There's no over-the-shoulder swing here. There's a short move here. Fast, close, decisive. And it is at this point that a line ceases to be a line. Not because everyone died. Just because they stop believing that they will endure. And when the first man runs, the second one doesn't want to be last. The battle ends in the head before it ends in the mind. The wall will break. He doesn't lose. It will break, and in that second an army ceases to be an army. It becomes a crowd that only thinks about escape. When you feel like the wall has cracked, you don't believe in him anymore. The officer shouts, but the fear is faster than the order and spreads like fire. The chase is not after the battle. The chase is a separate battle. Whoever stops dies. Whoever carries a pike and armor loses with his breath. And then the river appears. Divine art. Cold water looks like a lifesaver. Water has no mercy or flag. The current does its job. And the crowd, in panic, pulls itself under the surface, as if they were all one burden. To be continued. If you want to see part 3, write one word in the comment. Kircholm. Leave a thumbs up and subscribe. See you soon.